When you think of an NBA team, does a team consisting of someone under 5'7", a guy who bits someone's finger, making the other man get stitches, and a player who is banned by the NBA cross your mind for thoughts on an NBA team? That was the 1987 to 1988 Atlanta Hawks roster, a team filled with crazy stories, a crazy run in the playoffs, and a team that ultimately underachieved when opportunity came knocking. To set the stage, the 86-87 Hawks team finished with the third best record in the league, behind the likes of Magic's Lakers and Bird Celtics. 87-88 was expected to be the same level of play as the rosters didn't take on much overhaul. As for aspirations, the mid-80s Hawks teams have only been able to reach the conference semifinals, no conference finals, or NBA finals since 1970 for Atlanta. So getting a step further in the playoffs was the goal. First, we gotta break down the roster I mentioned at the start of the video, which mainly consisted of 12 players. For starters, we got Hawks legend Dominique Wilkins, who doesn't need much introduction. Wilkins up to this year had appeared in 2 All-Star games and led the league in points per game in 85-86 with 30.3. Just getting into his prime years by turning 28, Wilkins was ready to become an MVP candidate. Next to man we also all know, Doc Rivers. Doc, also getting his prime like Wilkins, with being 26, showed flashes of what a franchise point guard needed to be. The season prior, Doc put up 10 assists a game while starting all 82 games for the Hawks. Starting shooting guard was Randy Whitman, the Austin Reeves of the team who had back-to-back impactful years as a starter, but didn't live up to the name shooting guard as he attempted an average of .2 threes a game in his first 4 years in the league. Kevin Willis, the power forward for this team, put up his first career seasonal double-double in 86-87, getting 16 points a game and 10.5 rebounds. Tree Rollins was your average 80s defensive center for the Hawks, a player who fouled a lot and had a lot of steals and blocks. He was a first and second team all-defensive player in 83-84 and 82-83 respectively. Rollins was also a man with a controversial past as he bit the now CEO of basketball for the Utah Jazz, Danny Ainge's finger in 1983, which required Ainge to get 2 stitches. Cliff Levingston, a standout college player along with then Hawks teammate Antoine Carr, led Wichita State to the Elite 8 in 1981. In the NBA, Levingston became a first-round pick to the Pistons, but was a part of a trade in 1984 with Wichita State teammate Antoine Carr from the Pistons to the Hawks, where the Pistons received Dan Roundfield. Antoine Carr, the other half of the Wichita State team, was drafted in '83 by the Pistons, but opted to play in Italy for a year before being traded to the Hawks. Declining field goal percentage and playtime led Carr to be a rotational bench piece. John Koncak, a former 5th overall pick and a man who saw starting minutes in his first 2 years in the league, was a 7-foot project that the Hawks were hoping to turn into a new Tree Rollins. John Battle was drafted in the '85 draft and was an off-the-bench shooting guard that was seeing increased playtime under head coach Mike Fratello. Scott Hastings was a power forward originally drafted by the New York Knicks in 1982, but after 31 games was traded to the Hawks. Hastings, unlike Battle, had seen his minutes decline year after year from almost 17 a game in '83 to just 6 in '86. And Spud Webb, one of the shortest players in NBA history and former NBA dunk contest winner, was the Hawks' off-the-bench point guard who provided solid defensive presence. As you can tell from this Hawks team, they were young with the average age being 26 years and 2 months old, playing in their prime years for basketball. In the first 2 months of play, Atlanta went 20-7, sitting as the 3rd best team in the NBA on December 31st. In December as well, the Hawks traded for former 3rd overall pick Chris Washburn from the Warriors. Hawks exchanged the rights of Ken Barlow to get Washburn, while Washburn at the time only played 43 games for the Warriors. Washburn unfortunately was known to have a drug problem throughout college in his first 2 seasons with the Warriors. He checked into rehab in the spring of 1987, and even though he didn't play good when he getting back with the Warriors in the fall, the Hawks took a chance on him. Washburn only appeared in 29 games for Atlanta the rest of the season, playing 6 minutes a game. And by March, the Hawks cooled off their hot start to a record of 35-20, but was still the 5th best team in the league and 3rd in the East behind Boston and Detroit. And Doc Rivers and Dominique Wilkins also earned All-Star selections in that time. However, Atlanta finished the season by going a shaky 15-12, but still earning the 4th seed in the playoffs. Some standouts from the regular season was John Battle having 10.5 points per game, playing 18 minutes a game, as well as Dominique Wilkins having the most points per game in his career, averaging 30.7, and Doc Rivers averaging 9.3 assists and being 5th in the league in assists per game. And finally, Cliff Levingston coming in 8th in the league in field goal percentage at 55.7%. To start the '88 playoffs, the Hawks faced the 5th seed Bucks, the team that consisted of Terry Cummins, Jack Sikma, and an older Sidney Moncrief. The Hawks won in 5 with Wilkins averaging 31 a game. The next round, playing against the 2nd best team in the NBA. the Boston Celtics. A 31-year-old Larry Bird averaging nearly 30, and a 30-year-old Kevin McHale averaging 22.5, as well as the Celtics' impressive 36 wins at home and 87-88, was standing Atlanta's way to their first conference finals in 28 years. The first two games went the way of the Celtics, with Bird putting up 38 in Game 1, and McHale putting up 32 in Game 2. Now heading back to Atlanta, the Hawks took Game 3 and 4 to tie the series at 2 apiece. With Game 5 back in Boston, the Celtics led at half 48-43, but a 43 fourth quarter from the Hawks had the Hawks take a 3-2 series lead, one win away. In Atlanta again, the Celtics led by 1 at half and eventually closed out a tight 102-100 win with a tough shot to force Game 7. This Game 7 was an all-out duel between Bird and Wilkins. Boston once again led by 1 at the half. The Hawks were doing a great job against Bird for 3 quarters. Even though the Celtics were up 84-82, Bird only had 14 points. The fourth quarter, however, Bird exploded for 20 points, but Wilkins also put up 16 points of his own. But down 3 with just 5 seconds left, the Celtics fouled Wilkins and sent him to the line. Wilkins made his first free throw and intentionally missed the second, but there was not enough time to get a final shot off. The Celtics won 118-116. An Atlanta team that could have closed out Game 6 and 7 to finally get an Eastern Conference Finals berth just couldn't battle enough against one of the best teams in the league. After the end of the 87-88 season, the Hawks only made the playoffs 2 times in the next 4 years and never went past the first round. Their coach during that time frame, Mike Fratello, stepped down, and the only players from the 87-88 roster still on the team by 91-92 was Wilkins, John Koncak, and Kevin Willis. Wilkins played for the Hawks until 93 when he got traded to the Clippers, but Wilkins eventually ended up in the Hall of Fame. Kevin Willis played up into the NBA up until 2007 and finally retired at the age of 44, becoming the second oldest ever player to play in the NBA. Doc Rivers retired in 96 and started coaching the Magic in 99. After the Magic, he went to Boston and won a title, then the Clippers, and now 76ers. Whitman played in Sacramento and Indiana after his stint out of the Hawks. Then he got to be a head coach for the Cavaliers, Timberwolves, and Wizards. He honestly was the worst head coach in league history with the Wolves, had a record of 38-105. Tree Rollins left the Hawks in 87-88 season and went to play on Detroit, Houston, Cleveland, and was in Orlando when they went to the finals against the Rockets. Chris Washburn received a lifetime ban by the NBA in 1989 because of his drug problem. John Battle has become a pastor in Atlanta after he retired. Scott Hastings bounced around teams and retired in 93, but has now become a great TV color analyst for the Denver Nuggets. Cliff Levingston left Atlanta in 1990 and was able to be on the Chicago teams that won titles in 91-92, playing 13 minutes a game, and retired in 95. Antoine Carr played a long career himself until 2000, where he retired with Vancouver at the age of 38. John Koncak, after the 87-88 season, was known for getting one of the worst contracts in NBA history, a 6-year, $13 million deal from the Hawks in 1989, only shooting 43% from the field as a power forward in the last 5 years of the deal. Finally, Spud Webb played until 1998 and is now the president of basketball operations for the G League Texas Legends team. If you wouldn't mind liking, hitting the subscribe button, and hitting the bell notification. Thank you.